Hey everybody, Alex here, Out of the Park 23, Pittsburgh Pirates franchise, episode number 26, and we are back at the end of the 2030, I should say, MLB season. I've kind of sped through the entire year, as I know I've done the last couple years. I usually want and hope to sit and go through the season more in depth with you guys, but unfortunately, as you can tell, we have missed the playoffs again. This was a disappointing season with a lot of just chaos and a team that never really figured it out. So let's talk about that. Take a quick look at the info screen. Again, finishing the year 76 and 86, an improvement over last year, but just overall, we at one point we were 48 and 46 in mid to late July, and then just went on a big 8-game losing streak and just tanked from there. You see in July 9 and 16, playing below 500 every month since June. We were kind of hovering on around 500. Up until the All-Star game, and then just cratered from there. The offense was a bit better. We're 5th in batting average, but only 12th in runs scored. The home run still an issue, just the offense has never been good, and I really have to continue to focus on that. The pitching was not as good as I thought either. The bullpen was okay, the starters were kind of a mess, and we can talk about that. And what I want to do, I don't usually go into the screen, but just to look at how many players participated this year on the major league level. I went through so many different rotations. There weren't a ton of injuries either. I was just trying to find guys that could produce. You have an entire list here. I think this is like 20 or so names that had at least one at bat for us. And offensively, just nobody really was able to stick overall. If we look at let me try to go to my Alex stats here in the qualifiers. It's going to get weird though, because it's going to show the 100 guys that didn't play. So let me back out and just kind of look at the at bats. We'll go through the list here. Delfin Ramirez had a big year though, so he was not an issue. He was an all-star selection, one of a couple that we had. Hit 34 home runs. That is a career high, one more than what he had last year. Rowan Kelly was the NL batting champ. I think he actually had the best batting average in all of baseball. He got hurt here in late August, so missed the last month, but 323, 144 WRC+, 4.6 WAR player, so that was encouraging. Kata Rombide got a little bit hotter late, but probably a bit disappointing overall. Edwin Arroyo actually didn't start the year. He was a kind of a backup bench guy, but ended up playing a lot the rest of the way, but we have a decision to make with him and one on Ke'Bryan Hayes as well, who did well. Generally speaking, 2.6 WAR, played shortstop this year. Team option coming up on him. Alex Vega had a really strong year. I think that BABIP was inflated. I don't think it'll be that high next year, but we'll take it for now. Luis Morales was a guy I've talked about for a while, kind of disappointing. The contact is not increased, just a 232 hitter for us. Because Cabrera had gotten hurt in the last video that we showed, and he missed some time. Morales came up and ended up sending him back down. Oscar Strawn, who we thought would be that great center fielder for us defensively, which he was, but the bat was just poorer than I expected. If he could have been a 70 WRC plus kind of guy, you can work with that, but when it's 45, it's tough to justify. Gil Quintos, another prospect, former international free agent signing all the way back in 2023, came up, and he's always crushed it in the minor league system. He did show some power for us, but the average was poor, a negative WAR player overall, and he was kind of floating between AAA and the majors. Nick Dial actually had a decent year. He was a backup to start, but saw more playing time late. Justin Best came up and he was solid. Kind of tailed off a bit towards the end, but high on base percentage of almost 370. And so he'll be in the mix next year. Defensively, though, he's just not that impressive. Douglas Glod here, Glode, however you want to say it, got off to a hot start and then regressed. Got to find another corner outfielder, I think, although with Kelly and maybe Best, we'll see. Let's see, Kaimani Morris was the guy I really was rooting for. Got off to a fantastic start. You can look at his splits in the majors this year. Yeah, let me look at the actual major leagues. In March, it was a small sample size, but good. April was okay, and then really fell off from there and sent him down. So it's a guy that looks really good. The BABIP was low. Got to be better than 233 next year, you would think. So, maybe just a bit of bad luck there. Ricardo Cabrera had some injuries, but actually finished above 100 with his WRC plus. So, still in there. Tabor Fast is a guy that was miserable in spring training. Had a terrible start to the year. I actually demoted him. We can look at his splits as well. See batting splits here. Yeah, in April, 54 WRC plus, and then he came back up in August and September and was kind of back to form. So kind of have this logjam at first base, DH, guys that aren't great defensively to figure out. Dean Moss, another prospect, came up and he did okay in limited action. Renee Lasters was meh, actually really bad at 23 WRC plus, but backup catcher, not the root cause of the problems here. And Samuel Munoz, who we got in a trade a long time ago, had a cup of coffee with the Pirates. But again, just a lot of guys here just trying to, and I'm trying to be patient and stick with one guy and not rush him back down after 10 or so games. But as we were trying to keep our heads above water and fight when we thought we were wild card potential team, I was trying to make some moves, get some offense generated, and just never really happened overall. The pitching staff, it felt like a real major league season with the number of pitchers we used. I mean, there's the entire screen here, and you got another, 7 or so names here. And so I forget the exact tally, but we're talking over 20 pitchers used. And there were some injuries, but nothing catastrophic. And to talk about some trades, I'm kind of lumping the whole season together. We weren't super active at the deadline because we were starting to fall apart at the deadline, and so I bought a couple of players here. In Duran, who was terrible, he was good in San Diego, 8.29 ERA and 10 starts with us, and so he helped the implosion. We also traded for Brian Matta, a reliever who was okay, and then kind of got a bit worse there towards the end. With the Pirates, I don't know if we gave up any serious pieces. Tried to give up something equitable, a couple of names here to the Padres because Duran was under team control, so I thought maybe get him for next year. He may be tendered, but not really counting on much. I think there was some bad luck though. That BABIP was pretty high with Duran and with Mata. What do we give up with him? A former high draft pick, and Carl Schmidt, who was a former second-round pick in 2023, still just 26, but was never going to make the majors, and so that was the deal. There seems like a thing to do, give up the high draft pick who never really panned out to a team just looking to get a player there in Boston. Was not having a good season overall, and Matt is a free agent this offseason. So, yeah, in terms of the starting pitching, guys trying to develop, some guys got off to bad starts. I think it was either Questad or Lesko that got off to a really poor start and then settled down. Questad overall had a good year. I think it was Lesko that struggled more and then gradually improved. If we look at the splits here, what am I trying to look at? Yeah, March, April, that ERA was, up over 6, and then you see it towards the middle of the year, settle down, got a bit worse in August and September. Just trying to get that third pitch to develop. I had a batter maximum on him. Christopher Cruz, who's fragile now and had a forearm issue that was relatively minor. Not his best year ever, but still very good overall. He was not an all-star, though. Not a lot of accolades for what's been one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball. Sal Ramos has really struggled in his time in the majors. His ERA was 5.47, so he went back down. Don't know what to do with him overall. Had a couple of additions here in Hernandez, who was good for us. He will be a free agent, though. After this year, we did pick up Kyle Funkhauser, and he got hurt in the minors and tore his elbow ligament, and his career is basically done. David Bednar was very good for us, but you're seeing some regression there. 35. He will not be re-signed. I could have dealt him, but I just didn't want to be the guy that traded David Bednar twice. I traded him a while back and didn't want to deal him again. Also, we acquired or claimed off of waivers Brendan White, who was okay for us. I got hurt, missed some time. I don't think he'll be back next year, so Rafael Feliz, we just inked to a contract extension. The ERA did not look great. BABIP was high. Some of the advanced numbers look better with him. If I pull up the expanded batting stats, a FIP of 328, FIP minus a 77. So there was some bad luck in play there, but he got pretty good payday. 7.1 in 2020 or 2031, 7.1 in 2032, and 7.25 in 2033. So a 3-year extension with him. That's basically the bulk of it in terms of the guys to look at here. I'll kind of go back to the more conventional pitching screen, and you can see some of the names, but guys have bounced on and off so much that I wanted to kind of show the bigger picture because we've had so many changes this year. Ryan Kennedy, another prospect. He may go to the bullpen. I don't really think he's going to be a starter with the, average control and the low movement as an extreme fly ball pitcher. I think he could be a really effective reliever if we move him to the reliever tab. Yeah, that stuff goes to 80. We're looking for some bullpen help too, and hopefully have some guys in the minors that can be some starting pitching help for us. So that's where the team sits right now. Just kind of a chaotic year where there was really no stability and a lot of guys coming on and off the roster. Team chemistry was fantastic. I mean, that was certainly not an issue. And then staff roles, it was happier. Then they kind of fell off. I think that just relates to the lack of success that we're having. And so some decisions to be made there on our hitting coach, on our bench coach. Cannot find a trainer that's better than what I have right now with that has a really good prevent arm injury and better fatigue recovery. Those are the two things I'm looking for. Just can't find that guy right now. So I don't know. It's been a struggle for sure. We look at the history index of the team. Again, 5 games better than last year, but I've only made the playoffs once since I began playing. That was in 2027. Won the NL Central, lost to the Dodgers, I think, in the divisional round, and so it has been a really big struggle overall for this Pirates franchise. We will talk draft here. We had the number 1 overall pick, and there was not that prized prospect like I've seen in the past, and so we went with, I mentioned him, I think, at a prior point, Angel Salas, we'll say, 20 years old, high schooler, did well in limited action down in rookie ball, so going to be an outfielder for us. It was a very high school-driven draft. Usually I'm going more college guys that are a bit more MLB ready or close to it. Just did not see those guys this year, so a couple of power-hitting first basemen and Ken Vavi, I guess we'll say, and then Ramon Rodriguez, another power-hitting first baseman. It's kind of redundant, I know, but just trying to find, from a cost standpoint, from a salary and demand standpoint, from our draft pool perspective, was something to look at. And then just trying to find some talent. Alex Mejia, here a pitcher who doesn't, he's got a decent pitch mix overall, but low intelligence. And then with our 5th round pick, Alex Tapia. So kind of redundant here with the pitchers, the high school guys. But we'll see how they do. We do have prospects who are moving up, and kind of been hanging my hat on that for a while. And guys have not developed the way that I would hope, especially once they get to Pittsburgh. But Jose Pena, it's a weird profile with a low contact, low avoid Ks, but the high eye, the potential for the home run hitter, great defensively. So, he's 23 in high A ball and just been okay. It's not super confidence inspiring, but that's where we're at. Have some guys for next year. I mentioned this before. Alex Anaya, who was fantastic in AAA, could have been called up to the majors this year, but he'll compete next year. And we have the other guy who's not, there he is, and Alex Amaya, who could be up next year. Got a cup of coffee in AAA, Indianapolis, and they're going to be in the playoffs this year. My minor league teams are always good. My major league team is always pretty mediocre. But yeah, 8.2 WAR in 110 games in AA Altoona. And so we talk about moving Arroyo or Hayes or somebody like that. You see some of those guys that are going to be the replacements. Alexis Encarnacion could be a potential option as well in the outfield. Julian Williams had an amazing year in AA, 6.4 WAR, and then he got called up to AAA, so he'll be in the mix as well. But you wonder, the low avoid Ks, those guys have not always had great success for me from a pitching standpoint. The 2 names to really look at in terms of starting pitching, Sal Medina, who's got a sprained elbow. He was very effective in AA this year. And Woken Bell, who was pretty good in AAA this year. So he's the guy that will hopefully be in the mix for the big league roster in 2031. Draft pick last year. Again, can that changeup develop? That's the issue with Quested and Lesko, but that's what we're going to try to accomplish. As I just mentioned, from a salary standpoint, we're okay financially. We have money for next year, but still may create some space. Team option, $16.5 million option on Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's 33. Do you pick that up? Do you try to trade him? There's Edwin Arroyo Jr., one of the better trades we've ever made with Boston back in 2025. It's just, if we gotta get offense. We gotta get guys that can really produce offensively with their bat. Arroyo's never gonna be that guy. Only 1 year with a WRC plus over 100. That was back in 2027. So it's not been bad, but in the defense has been good, but it's just not the right strategy. And then from there, some arbitration guys that will kind of, comb through. Nothing too crazy. Delvin Ramirez will get paid a fair amount, but he will certainly be kept for the great seasons that he's having. And then just a lot of names in the books with all the guys we've called up. Really, I was looking at my preview for Rule 5 eligible players next year, and usually there's 5 or 6 of them because there's always a lot of good prospects I have in the system. There really aren't any of those guys right now because they've all been placed on the 40-man because they've all played for me in some form or fashion this year. Now, there are a couple of names. Jason Moten's going to be added. He's going to be a catcher of the future. This P guy is going to be, I think, a really good reliever for us, former 12th round pick. He could start. We'll see. He's not been successful as a starter in AA, though. You see the numbers here, so that tells me let's push this guy to the bullpen because he could be a really, really effective guy. We do need some bullpen help, but the 40-man right now, a lot of prospects have been put on there. Tony Lucet says numbers were okay, but you've seen the ratings really fall off here, so that's a prospect that I've had an eye on for a while. Morales as well. These guys falling short of expectation. Quick look at the standings in the MLB. You can see the teams that made it from the NL. The Mets, tiebreaker over the Braves, I guess, or they're going to play, maybe, I don't know if they're playing an extra game or what's going on over here. They're playing against each other. I don't know what's happening there, but they're both in the playoffs. Chicago, which I knew the Cubs were going to be the favorite. Their pitching was ridiculously good, and the Dodgers had a good surge. The Padres were pretty terrible, even with Fernando Tatis, who only hit 49 home runs this year after 74 last season. How many home runs does he have in his career? He sits at 583. So he's going to be a record holder if all goes on this track right now. In the AL, Tampa Bay and Chicago and Seattle with a MLB best 104 wins. Seattle did that back 20 or so years ago. I think they had the most wins in baseball. And Toronto and Houston and the Angels making it as the playoff teams. Their worst team in baseball, not us. Thankfully, not us. It was the Oakland Athletics. Very similar to real life, although they just beat up on the Pirates in real life. But 60 and 102 were the A's. So that's where things sit. Again, I went through the season. I'm only going to slow things down if something really changes. Just to kind of get through the years more and kind of the same we're not very good and we're going to stop and make changes. Just not real excited to do that. I want to slow the series down for sure and play some of these games out, but only whenever it really becomes more interesting, I think, and it just helps me get through the series faster if I'm just kind of going through a year that's a dud the way that this one has been. So hopefully you guys understand that. I'm sure I maybe missed a couple of things to talk about, but that's the bulk of it. So big decisions here. Again, very quiet trade deadline for us. Our off seasons are typically pretty chill, but this year have some money. Definitely could and probably will create more with Hayes and or Arroyo. Have some big decisions to make there. Should we decline the option on Hayes, pick it up and trade him? Do you trade Arroyo Jr.? I don't think both those guys are going to be on the roster next year for opening day, but we'll see. I have to think all that over and see what available free agents will exist. Do you go swing for Juan Soto? Probably not, but he's going to be a free agent, and so we'll be watching him pretty closely. And if we can just get these young guys to develop, then that's really what I'm looking for, especially offensively, and to maybe round out that starting pitching with Cruz, Questad, Lesko, and then probably 2 more names. Bell, we'll slot him in there right now, and then hopefully somebody else. So we'll figure it out and come back with a recap of the offseason in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. If you could leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate that. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.